So I think in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started right now. Thank you everybody for joining our Math Supplemental Curriculum or MSC Provider Fair. I know a lot of you also attended our kickoff on Tuesday with Krista and Colby, and we appreciate you coming today to see our providers. We have 6 providers under MSC, and you'll have an opportunity to learn more about their offerings today. So I'll introduce myself first. I'm Isabella Maldonado. I'm the team's project specialist. And my main role here with MSC is to be the go-between TEA and our 6 providers. I'll kick it over to Dr. Colby Self.
Hey, welcome. Hopefully some of you are back from our Tuesday kickoff. Glad you're able to come back to this optional provider fair. Colby Self, Director of Texas Tutoring, and you're going to hear from some great providers and what they have to offer in the way of math supplemental curriculum licenses today. And I'll kick it over to Krista.
Morning, everyone. Many of you heard from me yesterday. My name is Crystal Workman. I am a Texas Tutoring Specialist with TEA. I am the main point of contact for LEAs through the MSC grant process. And I am really excited to get started with you all.
Great. And we have another team member. I don't believe she's on the call today, but Alicia Garcia. For those of you who do write into our accelerated instruction inbox, she's mainly the person who you hear back from. So here's our agenda for today. We may be a little bit early if our welcome and introductions and all of that doesn't take up until 10:10. So we may get started a little bit earlier with our providers, but each provider has 10 minutes to show you a little bit about their product. And also they're going to share information about future office hours so that you can learn a lot more and maybe see a product demo, things like that. So we have our information here with our schedule. You can see all the vendors who will be here today. And then we'll have a closing at the end. We're going until about 11:15 unless we finish a little bit earlier. But at the end of all of our providers, we'll come back on and do some closing and next steps. A few FYIs for you. I believe the chat is closed down for participants, so please use the Q&A box for any questions that you have. And our team is monitoring that Q&A, and I believe that everybody can see other people's questions. So some folks may have the same questions and we'll write them in there. We will have a recording of this meeting up probably within a week on the Lasso 2.0 website. The slides will be posted as well with the recording. And if you have any questions, that's our email address. And I'm sure somebody from the team, if you're able to, can post our email address in the chat for folks in case you have any follow-up questions after this webinar. So I will kick it over to Krista now to talk about MSC general information.
Thank you, Isa. This is just a reminder of the timeline for MSC. The check marks we've already done. Your superintendents should have received the survey yesterday, or sorry, I'm 2 days behind on the 20th. I did resend several links yesterday. If please talk to your superintendent. If they still have not received the link, email us at Accelerated Learning. I'll put that in the chat in a few minutes. And we can resend you the link for the superintendents. We did have our kickoff meeting on the 20th as well. And then we're at the provider fair right now. The next meeting will be on the 29th, and that will be our individual office hours that you are welcome to attend. Additionally, each provider is going to host office hours, and those will fall between February 26th and March 1st. They'll give you that information throughout the slide deck, and then we'll also put some links for you to sign up in the chat as well. Some of them are QR codes, so just make sure that you can use your phone or whatever to sign up for those whenever we get there. And then just remember that big day of March 29th is when surveys are due by.
Great. And like Krista mentioned, there's going to be some QR codes. You can also do, like, if you have like a screen grab, you can do that to save the picture as well if you don't have your phone handy.
Very quickly, these are the 6 providers that we're going to be hearing from today. They'll give you a lot more information than what's on this slide, but this is just a quick overview of what they provide and their usage thresholds. As a reminder, the usage thresholds that we put here were just more for planning purposes. So that way you as an LEA would know about how many minutes per week your students would be spending on this, but the SAPL slide deck is going to have very specific usage thresholds for each provider that you all will be held to. So just please make sure that you reference that when you are selecting your providers.
And if anyone wants to do a quick screen grab, I'll leave this up for a couple of seconds. But this will be posted again in about a week on the LASSO 2.0 website. And as Krista mentioned, we do have that state approved provider list, the SAPL, that has all of this, that has each individual provider's information as well. So if anyone wants to do a quick screen grab, that's your opportunity. Great. So we're going to get into our providers right now. For our providers, obviously, I'm not familiar with your animations as I share your screen. So if the slide has additional animations and you need me to click through, just let me know once I get to your slides. Oh, click again. But you can just let me know when to go to the next slide. So age of learning, we're starting a bit early, just 1 minute, but here we go.
Thank you, Isabella. Hello, everybody. I am Jazz, and I live in Lubbock, Texas. Next slide, please, Isabella. I am pleased to present you with my Math Academy to support your youngest mathematicians in grades pre-K through second grade through the MSC grant. So our company started 17 years ago with children learning at home with their families, but that doesn't reach every child every day. So our founder embarked on a journey to create a learning experience that was not only equitable, but designed for educators supporting children learning in schools. With 50 million children learning worldwide, we are the leaders in early foundational learning with My Math Academy. Next slide, please. In our short time, we're going to cover our approach, an overview, and how we support you in the implementation through this MSC grant. Next slide, please. First, our approach. We'll start with efficacy. Next slide. Our ESSA level 1 strong rating represents the strongest level of evidence and therefore the strongest level of confidence that My Math Academy works. So we partner with these reputable, nationally recognized institutions to provide that valid third-party evidence that our solutions aren't only engaging, but they are efficacious. Next slide. So our ESSA study with Harlingen in the 2020 school year showed statistically significant gains for students that used My Math Academy, shown in orange, resulting in 98.1% of those students being kinder ready, as opposed to peers not utilizing My Math Academy, shown in blue, with 76.5% kinder ready, which is still really good, but not quite as much as those who used My Math Academy. This is a pretty significant gain. Next slide. Yep, that's it. That's the right slide. Thank you, Isabella. So now to our most recent efficacy results showing the power of acceleration over remediation using My Math Academy. So these two lines, you see an orange line and a blue line, they represent two groups of students. So the orange line here represents data from centers with low percentages of students achieving kinder readiness as opposed to their more advanced peers, shown in blue. So by winter, that gap had widened by 3 points. So the goal with implementing My Math Academy in the winter of 2022 was to close that academic achievement gap. So the results, students utilizing My Math Academy narrowed the achievement gap by 85% from winter to spring, truly showing how My Math Academy accelerates learning outcomes. Next slide. The proven effectiveness has driven demand for our programs across the country. Next slide. And here are just a few in Texas that we are proud to have partnered with over the last 2 years. Next slide, please. So how does My Math Academy work? Next slide. So first, our students are going to take a brief placement test. Now, it's not a full-blown diagnostic. It's going to provide us with a starting point for their pathway. Based on this data, we'll place a student within their ZPD, and we're going to collect data on every single decision a child makes, making those intentional pivots along the way, but the ultimate goal is competent, confident learners who have mastered their TEKS and still really love learning. Next slide. So My Math Academy covers hundreds of learning objectives aligned to TEKS as seen in this representation, and the colors represent those individual TEKS strands. Next slide. And because we know the pathway to student mastery is not linear, My Math Academy is collecting 100 data points per minute and adapting those student pathways about every 3 or 4 minutes. So this represents all the different learning journeys the school of about 200 students take towards mastering a single standard. Next slide. So diving in a little deeper into what instruction looks like in our programs, you'll notice we are aligned to the new pre-K guidelines, and this is a sample of our subitizing lesson. You guys know subitizing is the ability to instantly recognize the number of objects without actually counting them, and a hugely important standard for pre-K. We'll watch just a snippet of this one. Isabella, if you'll kindly click on the video.
We're at the market. The Shapies are going to take some oranges off the shelf. Look carefully and remember how many oranges you see. How many oranges were on the shelf? 3. Nice going. 3 oranges.
So we immerse students in real-world application, learning in a grocery store, accessing their prior experience and tying it to new math learning. Next slide. So here's an example of a second grade lesson, bringing in those digital manipulatives with some base 10 blocks as students engage and produce those mathematical representations of subtraction. Next slide. We know students come to us with cognitive, cultural, and linguistic assets, so we offer My Math Academy in Español. We're going to watch just 5 seconds of this video, please, Isabella.
Los Shapies están en el circo.
Okay, we're good. Thank you. I hope you noticed the authentic Spanish instruction there. Next slide.
Los Shapies
And for our advanced second graders, our 3rd through 5th grade content is going to be seamlessly available to all learners ready to move beyond their grade level pathway, instructed by one of our program hosts, Tanner, holding true to that engagement to accelerate student learning. Next slide. And finally, our digital manipulatives allow for student invention as they become creators and not just consumers of those math representations. In My Math Academy, students discover their learning through productive struggle, really engaging with these powerful tools. Next. And as students are completing their pathway, we do offer real-time actionable reports. And of course, we offer that usage data. Next slide. And we target those areas of opportunities with information on where students were, where they are, and where they're going. But we also provide, next slide, standards reporting aligned to TEKS and the new pre-K guidelines. Next slide, please. So once we've identified areas of growth, now what? Next slide. For that targeted individual, small group, or whole group setting, you have access to embedded online lessons, TEKS-aligned offline activities, and full lesson plans. Next slide. So that you can seamlessly integrate that into classroom models of instruction. Next slide. And we fit right into your RTI or MTSS framework, providing supports for Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 instruction. Next slide. And as my brother would say, positive school culture empieza en la casa, which means it starts at home. We have a family connection portal that not only gives insights, but activity suggestions for families in English and in Espanol. Next slide, please. We integrate with Clever and ClassLink for single sign-on, and we provide asynchronous training and virtual supports. Next slide. So what special supports do we have for you all through this MSC grant? Next slide. Not only are we going to provide those automated reports, but you'll have access to a customer success manager monitoring your data, providing those monthly or quarterly data chats. And we'll offer virtual professional learning, and we'll make those in-person options available as well. Next slide. We also actively celebrate our educators. Our success team has been described as social emotional supports for your teachers implementing our programs. I mean, look at her face. She's beaming with joy to be celebrated for not only implementing with fidelity, but for positive student growth. Next slide.
1 minute warning.
Yes, thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, and now for usage expectations. Starting at just 10 hours, students are making significant gains in My Math Academy. So this represents around 30 minutes per week. And our customer success managers will ensure that you're meeting those expectations and keep you informed and empowered to act. Last slide. Our success director and myself will be hosting office hours on February 26th, every hour on the hour from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. CST. Please use this QR code to register. We can't wait to partner with you. We're so excited to see the tremendous gains and, most importantly, happy faces of our young Texans learning with us in My Math Academy.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. And I believe our team is going to put that registration link in the chat as well. But for those of you who need to take a screen grab or open up your phone cameras, I'll leave it up for about 5 more seconds.
Isa, we also had a question in the chat. Is it possible for you to move your Zoom bar? If not, it's okay. It's just we're able to see it, so it's blocking a little bit of the
this
top
does
of the
block.
slide.
Okay. Let's see. I put it down here. I thought it usually disappears, but I guess not. Thank you. I'll move it down. Well, hopefully it will just disappear. It's either at the top or the bottom. Let's see if I can. It doesn't let me hide it, unfortunately, but it does hide after I don't click for a bit. Sorry, folks. All right, we have Carnegie Learning, Mathia.
Thank you, Isabella. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Caitlin Miller. I'm a Senior Manager of School Partnerships with Carnegie Learning, and I'm going to talk to you today about Mathia. The next slide, Isabella. Here at Carnegie Learning, we like to say others teach what while we teach why. For over 25 years, we've been developing our math solution that helps students learn math on a deeper level and builds towards their long-term success. Next. A little bit about Mathia and what we're offering. Mathia content is for secondary from 6th grade through Algebra 2. We do offer accelerated courses in both 6th and 7th grade. It is also available in Spanish. Our recommended usage threshold is 20 minutes per week. As you can see down at the bottom of the slide, these are a couple of our partnerships who have had some wonderful growth, and just a couple of Texas case studies specific. In Aldine ISD, Algebra 1 students had a 100% pass rate on their STAR after using Mathia. Another partner of ours, Muleshoe ISD, saw 333% STAR improvement with the Texas Math solution. These are a couple of partners we're just super proud of that we like to showcase. If you'd like to see more, you can visit carnegielearning.com for some more of those as well. Thank you. Next, Isabella. Our grant-specific supports we're talking about today, we are providing Mathia, our AI-driven one-to-one math coach. This is our software online for students to be able to work in an individualized experience. And we're going to talk a little bit about the personalized learning for them later. Teachers also receive feedback and assessment data, as well as the students receiving their own real-time feedback. This is our award-winning software, and we are so excited to showcase some of those tools in just a moment. Thank you. Next. These are a few of our current partners that we work with. As you can see, some information on the screen about each of those districts, including Dallas ISD, Spring ISD, and East Central. Currently using our math solutions and Mathia. We also have over 200 program grantees from previous cycles. These are just a few we wanted to showcase today that we're so excited about the success we're seeing in those districts. Thank you. Okay, in just a moment, we're going to see some Mathia in action. We're going to play a quick video while I narrate some of the features about Mathia. We're going to look from a student perspective about what they would see 6th grade through Algebra 2. This is specifically going to be something from 8th grade. Isabella, if you'll play that next video, then you can keep it muted. So launching here in Mathia, students have a personalized path depending on where they are in the software. As you can see, they also have access to key terms on the right side of the screen. That links to a digital glossary that's available in both English and Spanish. In this example, I'm a student who's already made some progress working on Introduction to Irrational Numbers. This is called a concept builder workspace. Concept builders are just like what they sound. They are meant to build up that concept for students. This could be the first time they're exposed to this skill and they're learning it. So they have some tools such as videos. We often have explore tools, examples, or perhaps they already learned this and this is a little bit of a review for them. So you can see in this concept builder on the left side of the screen, students can watch the video and they have some information on the right side of the screen. They can pause it, go back and forth at any time and answer whenever they're ready. In their own chance to answer at the top, answer at the bottom, they can go in any order. If students need support, they also have a built-in hint that this will help them have that coach ready for them instead of a teacher needing to support them every step of the way. They can request more help. We get real-time feedback. As you can see, this one was answered incorrectly, so I need to go do something different. Students also have all of these star item types, such as drag and drop, drop-down features that they will engage with over and over again in their workspaces. Now I'm a student who's finishing up my workspace. I'm done. I get a fun little quote down at the bottom that tells me how hard I've worked. And I'm launching into what we call a mastery workspace. In a mastery workspace, students have a chance to work with a step-by-step problem. This helps them be able to know exactly what I need to do to work on my discrete skills in this Mathia workspace. So here I'm working with a number line, can drag it around and place it where I need it. And as you can see, I'm getting some confetti at the top of my screen and my skillometer. I've started to make some progress in those skills that Mathia is currently assessing me on. So I've done plot decimal, and I've shown that I know how to master that skill so far. Now, based on how I performed, when I click I'm done, I'm getting a tailored individualized question personalized to me. So if I need more support in certain areas, I'm going to get more problems based on that, or I may be mastering those more quickly, and then I'm able to move on a little bit faster in that skill. Students also have accommodations like Google Translate that I can turn on and text-to-speech by putting those in my preferences. You can see here that now I have the text-to-speech offering on the screen, the oral accommodations for me so I can have anything read to me that I might need to get me ready for those testing environments as well. Any language that's available in Google Translate is available in Mathia. Once that's enabled, I can translate that into whatever my language that might support me best would be. I also have an opportunity to go back and work on some more concept builders if I need those. And as I master, I continue working at my own personalized pace based on what I need. That's a quick overview of some of the tools that I wanted to make sure we pointed out to you in Mathia. We'll talk more about what the teachers see in just a moment. Thank you, Isabella. You can go to the next screen. So a few things that I pointed out already that I just wanted to recap. Mathia has that human coach feature. So students can ask for hints, but they also get just-in-time hints. So if they're struggling with a concept, our AI on the background is actually going to give them a hint based off a common misconception. The students have their own personalized learning experience path based on how they're performing. They can work faster or slower. They also have access to, of course, their ongoing feedback like we saw in that skillometer, while teachers are getting all of that information on the back end as well. Teachers will have access to 5 different reports that we'll see later to be able to leverage data to figure out where their students need the most support or where their students are heading. Next slide. So live hint, Mathia software with AI and true differentiation. We kind of talked already a little bit about those. If you move forward there, students saw that hint and the differentiation. I'll show you from the educator's point of view how you will know exactly what they need differentiated if they're not already getting that in Mathia. Next slide. These are the reports that teachers have access to. They get 5 reports for the educators to view the data that all of their students are performing. So we have the progress report, sounds exactly what it is, where they are in their progress. We also have a session report that shows me every step students are taking, how much minute they're spending in the software, how many hints they're using, how many problems they're completing. Also the skills report, looking at those discrete skills that students need so that I know exactly what my students may need further support on. The standards report, that's my TEKS. It will show me how students are proficient, non-proficient, or needing remediation in my TEKS. And then we have the applause report. That's a predictor report that shows me where my students are heading and how they're expected to perform on the end of course exams such as STAR. Thank you. You can go next. This is the leadership report. All leaders will have access to a bird's eye view looking at their campuses overall to see how many students are active, what the average usage may be, how much they're completing in their syllabus, as well as how they're performing. You can look at both the class and teacher level, as well as the grade level as a leader. Thank you. Next. While working in Mathia, teachers have a tool named Live Lab. This helps them monitor the student progress so I can see which of my students are struggling, which of my students I need to spotlight at the moment, and I get notifications so I can celebrate my students in the moment as they are mastering their workspace. This tool helps me keep students on track and make sure that all of them are being successful during our Mathia time. Thank you. Next slide. Recapping back to our goal of teaching the why, Mathia allows students to have those rewarding experiences as well as for the teachers so that they can really get those concepts. They click into place and we see that long-term success. Thank you. And you can go to the next slide.
1 minute warning.
Thank you. If you'd like to find out more, I'd love to spend some time with you. I have a couple office hours next week written there on the screen. You can either visit the tiny URL, I saw we dropped one in the chat, or you can scan that QR code. If you scan that QR code, I'll send you an invite. I'll let Isabel leave it there for a moment, and then I'll show you some contact information at the end in case you need to get in contact. Okay, and Isabella, if you just go to the next two slides, that's just a couple of contact information if they need to reach out to us individually. If you need to reach out to our Vice President of Customer Success, Stephanie Duran, that's her information. You could take a quick screenshot of that. You can also, of course, visit office hours, and then on the next one, you can get in contact with me. My information is shown there. We'd love to chat with you next week, and thank you so much for giving me time today. We're excited to speak more about Mathia.
Great. Thank you so much. And again, the information is there, and we've dropped in the chat the registration link for office hours. And I'm sorry, I've tried to get rid of the bar at the top. There's nothing that allows me to. So I'm sorry for that. When these slides are posted, they will be without the black bar at the top though. So next we have Curriculum Associates iReady.
Hello, everyone. I'm Claudia Salinas. It's a pleasure to be here and honored to potentially support you in growing our students' achievement in mathematics. So Curriculum Associates has been around for over 30 years. We've been serving districts throughout the entire country. And currently we serve about 13 million students in kindergarten through 8th grade. So we're very excited about that. If you can go to the next slide, please. And across Texas, one of the things that you're going to see is that we are supporting rural, suburban, urban school districts of many sizes. And we actually have had a couple of you already reached out to talk about how we can support you moving forward. If you can go to the next slide, Isa, please. So at the very beginning of what we do in iReady is start with this adaptive diagnostic. It is an adaptive diagnostic kindergarten through 12th grade. So we can first understand where your students are and help every student grow. So if you're thinking about how do I get that algebra readiness pipeline for 8th grade, iReady is going to be able to help you figure that out. So if you can click on the animations, please, Isa. Thank you. So again, it's on one single scale. It has over 9,000 items, including the tech enhanced items for STAR redesign and the correlation for STAR. But the whole purpose of this assessment that we give at the very beginning is, if we go to the next slide, is to help teachers teach. So the system is going to gather the data, it will analyze the data, determine strengths and needs, and group your students into instructional groups, and gather all the resources that will help teachers focus on what they do best, which is teaching. So again, the whole goal is to gather the data to teach much faster. If you please go to the next slide, one of the things you're going to see is that we address all the domains and all the TEKS that are accessible via the diagnostic. And from there, one of the things that you're going to see if we go to the next slide is the first report that a teacher will see. Teachers are going to be able to see whether your students are in mathematics above grade level, 1 grade level below, 2 grade levels, or even 3 or more grade levels below. And knowing that information is going to be super critical to help us understand where they need to be. If we think about an individual student, and if you can go to the next slide, Isa. One of the things that we have done for every single one of our students is calculating a typical and a stretch growth. A typical growth is simple. It's like where we think a student is going to end by the end of the year. But more importantly, we do that in relation to grade level. So if we think about the student, Elijah, who's on my screen, he's a 5th grader who scored a 470. By the end of the year, we normally know that that student will get to their typical growth. But if we think about that, that's at the very beginning of 5th grade. So every child gets a stretch growth, a little bit more ambitious and attainable. So the next thing we think about is like, how do we help every student get to that stretch? How do we accelerate learning? So teachers can easily click on those domains on the right-hand side. And if you go to the next slide for me, Isa, one of the things teachers will see is that they have teacher-led lessons that they're going to be able to do in small group. And the system will also create that digital path for the students. But it's that blended approach of what the teacher's doing in small group, and at the same time, what the system's doing digitally to accelerate learning. If you go to the next slide, Isa, one of the other things that iReady Diagnostic is going to do is create a prerequisite report. It's going to have that alignment to Tier 1, that instructional coherence that our teachers need. So if I am about to teach a particular TEK, or I am using one of the HQIM approved programs, it will tell you which students are ready to go, which students need a little bit more, and which students need in-depth review. And that data is so powerful, so we can, again, focus on making that Tier 1 accessible. If you can go to the next slide, please. One of the things you're also going to be able to pull, like I mentioned earlier, is those alignments. So if you are using Eureka or you're using any of those HQIM programs, you're going to see that you're going to be able to pull that at point of use and determine what prerequisite report to use in order to make that on grade level instructional coherence even better. If you can go to the next slide. So like I mentioned earlier, the purpose of that diagnostic is to determine where our students are and what they need in their zonal proximal development. So it will provide teachers those teacher-led lessons, and simultaneously, it will create a digital path. That digital path will have 20 lessons always queued up for our students. If the students take that assessment in Spanish, they will have those lessons in Spanish, and they're all authentically done as well, in which we even hired professional voice actors. And one of the things we always would tell them when we were coaching them is like, we want you to sound like Univision. We want to make sure there's no accents and that every child can connect to that language that they're speaking. So again, you have the teacher-led lessons and that digital path. If you can go to the next slide, Isa. One of the things that's super powerful though is that the system does create that digital path, but you are also able to assign lessons based on your Tier 1 instruction, based on the TEKs that you're focusing on, and that will be ready to go. So at point of use, teachers will be able to click on any of those lessons and assign them. If you're in a dual language program, one of the things you'll also see is that you have access to English and Spanish all the time for both of those lessons. So if you are doing language of the day or you're doing a 50-50 model, you're also going to be able to assign the other target language. So you can definitely balance from a linguistic perspective or assign them again based on your scope and sequence or your TEKs that you're focusing on. If you can go to the next slide. I logged in as a student and took a screenshot of it. And that's what you're going to see here. As a student logs in, if the path is created by that assessment, it is called My Path. And that is based on the student's lowest domain. So we work on those lowest domains first. So if it's number and operations, they're going to have lessons on number and operations, and you're going to be able to track that growth. But at the same time, if I'm working on my alignment to my Tier 1 instruction, or I'm looking at a dual language program, I'm going to be able to assign those lessons for our students, and you're going to see them side by side, teacher assign and the digital path. In addition to that, at the very bottom, you see that little pretty dragon. That is called fluency flight. So we know that students are struggling with numerical fluency, but the way we're approaching numerical fluency is all from a conceptual development. So that automatically will come, all students will have access to that, and you'll also see that they will have access to learning games, and they will have access to digital manipulatives as well when they're logged in. If you see that screen, you also see my progress and my stuff. My progress means that students are very easily can see where they are and how many lessons they completed, and so can family members can do that as well. On the top right-hand corner says Family Center, so families can click in. And if students are doing any of these lessons at home and families need tech support, we even have tech support available in English and Spanish for our families to go ahead and call them if they need some guidance there. If we go to the next slide, please, Isa. One of the things that you'll see is that we have seen tremendous growth in kindergarten through 5th grade when using iReady personalized instruction, an average of 45 minutes a week, and a 70% passing rate. And you're also going to see that we've seen great growth across all the subpopulations as well. So again, if we're using our average time of 45 minutes and that 70% passing rate, you're going to see that incremental growth and that acceleration for our students. We also have some ESSA level 2 research behind this, so we're very excited about the research we're doing in regards to iReady personalized instruction. Isa, if you can go to the next slide, please. Again, here's now where a teacher is tracking that growth for our students. So depending on where they start, you'll see that students will always start with their lowest domain first, and this one happened to be geometry, but we're always showing that data in relation to grade level. We want all students to grow, but we also want them to be proficient. So at any time, teachers can look at any of the students' report, and so can district level administrators, and they're going to be able to see that growth. And since we don't want iReady to just be a babysitter, one of the things the system automatically does, it will flag. And if a student has not passed multiple lessons in a row in the same domain, teachers are going to get that little triangle for warning signs, or they may get a hexagon in which we shut that domain down and we notify the teachers in order for them to work with the students. If you can go to the next slide, please.
1 minute warning.
Thank you. You're going to see that our team is going to work with you in professional development. We'll plan your implementation. We're going to provide access in regards to supporting you with rostering and technical support. We have a whole team that will be able to provide all the data for TEA in regards to tracking. So a whole team will come with this implementation. And lastly, the last slide is we do have office hours set up already. There is a QR code in the last slide, and you'll be able to at any time log in and join us for office hours all next week. And we have some scheduled already from 10 to 10:45 and some in the afternoon as well. Or if you need some individual time, you can definitely reach out to myself or Carl, and we'll be able to set that up for everybody.
Thank you so much, Claudia.
Thank you so much.
The QR code is here for those who need a second to grab it. And I'm going to stop sharing in about 5 seconds. And my teammate Krista will start sharing to see if maybe hers won't have this bar at the top for you. Okay, all yours, Krista.
Okay, can someone confirm if the bar has gone away?
I don't see it anymore. Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Krista.
IXL, it is your floor.
Good morning. Thanks for your time today. We'll kind of do a quick overview of what IXL has to offer. First of all, I want to point out that we do offer math curriculum for every student from pre-K through calculus. And so we're able to support pre-K through 12 students. Next slide, please. We have a number of rigorous research studies that show that IXL improves student performance on standardized tests. Some of that research is done based on the STAR. We have ESSA studies. And so really, depending on what your goals are, we can direct you to whichever studies you may want to take a look at. Next slide, please. As far as footprint, IXL footprint in Texas, we are in the hands of 1 out of every 4 students. This is largely because teachers and administrators find IXL easy to use and then like the results they see when students are using IXL. Next slide, please. IXL can be categorized into kind of 5 different bubbles, we say, and so we'll kind of use this graphic to drive our conversation in the next couple of minutes. IXL is a robust platform. We offer a lot of different avenues for students and teachers to use it, and so we'll dive into each of the different ones briefly. If you'll click on the next slide, we'll take a look at the curriculum first. We offer, as I mentioned earlier, pre-K through 12 math curriculum. We do that in an open access platform, which means no matter how your student is rostered, let's say they're rostered as a 3rd grader, they still have access to every bit of math curriculum we have to offer from pre-K through calculus. So if there are some areas they need remediation and maybe some they need enrichment, they're going to have access to exactly what they need. Next slide, please. This is a look into what an IXL skill will look like. I want to draw your attention to a couple of different things. All of our skills are going to be formatted in a similar manner. It's very distractor-free. You'll notice that it's very clear to the student what it is we're asking of them. I also want you to take note of the different supports we offer students within every skill page. So you'll see at the top of the page, if they're not ready to jump right into this and answer the question, they can learn with an example, or they could even watch a short video. Those videos are engaging, they're less than 5 minutes long, and we never require that students sit through the entire video. If they're able to pick up what they're supposed to be doing and close the video, they're welcome to do that. Now, when students answer the question, they're going to get immediate feedback, whether they are right or wrong. So if you'll go to the next slide, this is just going to be a quick grab of what it looks like if they are correct. I also did want you to take note that we do offer that option for key math skills. At the top, you'll notice students can toggle that over to Spanish translation if they need to. Okay, so next slide. If they are incorrect, they also get immediate feedback, but I want you to note that we do 2 things. First of all, we are very specific to the question they missed. So if a student missed 27 100ths, then they're going to get feedback about how to correctly answer 27 100ths. I also want you to notice that we show students there are different ways sometimes to answer the question. So you can see there in their explanation, it gives them a couple of different ways to look at that so that they're really solidifying that conceptual understanding. Next slide, please. Since we don't have time to dive into all of the curriculum, I just wanted to let you kind of lay your eyes on some pre-K, some Algebra 2, as well as some 7th grade. All of our questions, we're going to touch on all the different STAR question types. So students are going to be immersed in different ways of answering questions, different kinds of input. Next slide, please. Now, we have over 9,000 skills within the IXL platform, and because it is so robust, we really have worked to make sure that those are offered to teachers and students in a user-friendly fashion. And so we organize our curriculum into what we call skill plans. So what you're looking at right now is a TEKS skill plan. That means if I'm the 5th grade math teacher, I can quickly pull up this TEKS skill plan, and IXL has already determined and said, okay, here are the skills we have to support every one of these TEKS strands. You can see those small gray stars to the left of the skill name. As a teacher, I can quickly click on that star to assign that skill to students. So you're going to notice teachers have a lot of capability here to use IXL for TEKS-based daily instruction, but we'll also talk about some other avenues as well later. Next slide. Our skill plans are organized into a number of different ways. Of course, we talked about the TEKS, but you'll see here we have organized these skills to support a number of different standardized assessments, including STAR. We also organize these to support textbooks. So if you use Go Math, for example, or HMH or Eureka, what we'll do is we'll say, okay, if you're in Unit 5 of Go Math, here are the IXL skills we have to support that. And so that way teachers are able to use it on a day-to-day basis in whatever way supports whatever their goal is for that day. Next slide, please. So we offer things within every skill to make sure we're supporting teachers and students. So as far as students, we talked about the Spanish translations, we talked about the videos and the view and examples. We also offer audio support. For teachers, we offer some instructional resources and engagement tools as well. One of the things we do is we give lessons for these math skills so that if teachers need a little bit of extra support or want to send that support home to parents, they have that capability. Next slide. We also give teachers the ability to create their own assessments using what we call IXL quizzes. So I mentioned earlier, 9,000 skills, lots of fantastic curriculum within the platform itself. What we wanted to make sure we could do is allow teachers the flexibility to pick and choose if they wanted to create a post-assessment or create a STAR prep practice page. They can pick and choose using the different skills and build their own assessments for a percentage score. Next slide. We also allow a bird's eye view for both teachers and administrators into what exactly is going on in the classroom in this moment. We call this our live classroom. You'll notice here, you can kind of see some of those boxes changing, numbers going up or going down. If you notice one of the boxes turns red, you'll know that student is experiencing a little bit of a trouble spot and they may need some extra instruction in this moment. What we're trying to do with that is just make sure teachers can get to the students who need them as quickly as possible. Next slide. So all of the things we've talked about so far about the curriculum and the skill plans, that's going to be for that daily TEKS instruction. We also have a component within the platform that comes with every subscription that's going to allow us to assess and diagnose students so we can form some personalized guidance and recommendations for them. And this is through our assessment suite. Next slide. We call our diagnostic the real-time diagnostic. So if you want to always have up-to-date levels on all of your students, they can hop in that diagnostic and answer a few questions regularly so that they keep grade level pinpoints for every strand that we diagnose in math. So we address 6 strands in math, and on every one of those strands, we will make personalized recommendations for every student so that we make sure we're meeting them exactly where they are in every strand. So if, for example, maybe they struggle a little bit with fractions, but they're knocking the top off in geometry, we're going to meet them at both of those strands. We're going to push them along in fractions, and we're going to make sure we're challenging them with geometry. Next slide, please.
1 minute warning.
Okay, our diagnostic can also be done in a snapshot format. You get lots of reports at your fingertips. Next slide, please. You'll know exactly what percentage of students are on, below, or above grade level, and all of these are filterable by grade level, demographic, and campus. Next slide. If you do these in snapshot windows, we're going to provide reports for that as well. Next slide. And there is a built-in universal math screener. So in 20 to 30 minutes, you're going to know how many of your students are flagged for intervention. Next slide. We are partners with MAP, and so we can help you import that data if you'd rather use that for personalized guidance. Next, please. And of course, we have MAP research to support that, to show that RIT growth occurs with IXL use. Next slide. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Sorry about that. And one more, we'll talk about usage. We recommend showing proficiency in 2 skills per subject per week. And then next slide will show you our office hours that we're offering if you want to do a quick grab on that, if you want to learn more about IXL.
And I'm going to, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm going to leave this up for just a second. We don't have website links to post in the chat. So if you want to join IXL's office hours, go ahead and screen grab this right now. I'm going to leave it up for just a few more seconds.
And Mackenzie, if you end up having links, like if you can grab links and then put them in the chat at some point during the webinar, you're free to do that as well.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great.
All right, I'm going to go to the next.
The last slide is just going to give you an email address. If you want to reach out directly to the Texas team and set up your own time to visit with us, you can email us at texas@ixl.com. Thank you.
All right, Mind Education, ST Math, you're up.
Hey, y'all. I'm sorry to report that you're stuck with me. Our main presenter, Dr. Christy Dorman, is having some internet issues. We're on site at Texas Association of Supervisors of Mathematics. So I'm here representing the Texas team. We're here to talk about ST Math, which is being provided by TEA for grades pre-K through 8. It's currently used by 1.2 million students across the state of Texas, all 20 ESCs, about 16,000 educators in almost 600 districts. So we're thrilled to join you today and share more. And Lisa, I'll just say please and thank you. And if we have to just say next slide so it doesn't feel like I'm barking orders at you. So ST Math is really different. We have a really different approach to instruction. So to get a really great sense of that, you would actually have to play games to experience what that really feels like. So we're not going to show too much of what that learning looks like today. Instead, we're going to focus on outcomes and on teacher and student experience. But just know that it's built on 25 years of neuroscience research. The approach is visual in nature. And we really believe that from an equity lens, if students can't access the mathematics at grade level, then we're not really doing our job. So, next slide, please. STMath is created by Mind Education. So Programs STMath, our organization, is a neuroscience research nonprofit. We have been studying how the brain learns math for the last 25 years. And this is our mission. You see it up here on the screen. And like I said, that from an equity lens, that all really means all. So that's why our programs are designed to be independent of language proficiency and reading proficiency. You don't need to speak a word of English to sit down and engage with rigorous mathematics on here. Next, please. We are excited to enter our 6th year of supporting a statewide initiative through TEA. So we have built out a really robust team of Texas-based educators. So everyone you see on the screen here was at some point a public school teacher or administrator or coach or both or all of them. So you are getting the support of a team that has been doing this for a while, and we're all here to take care of y'all. This isn't the whole team, but this is everyone we could fit on one slide. So just know that the support you're going to get. Next slide, please. Is being delivered by people who know what it takes to be successful with students in Texas. And so through the MSC grant, you're going to be receiving support from our dedicated implementation team. Every single MSC site will get live instructor-led professional learning. That's not going to be, hey, can you make it at 3 o'clock next Thursday? It's whenever that campus needs that, we'll be able to schedule that individually. All of the information that you need to stay in compliance with TEA through this grant is going to be automated. Uploading and ongoing coaching and modeling will be provided as well. Next, please. And you get all that at the bottom too. Next, please. So this is a point where we thought about sharing all of the data that comes out of STMath, all the reports. And as you can imagine, because we are a technology and a tech company providing a software, those reports are color coded. You can download them in Excel. It shows things like usage and progress and minutes and teach mastery and how students are doing on STAR style assessments. But what we really wanted to focus was when students use STMath with the recommended amount of usage, how do they do on STAR? And so in the 2021-22 school year, students who used STMath at that recommended rate across the state averaged 72% meets masters on STAR. And you can see from all the different student populations there going down the line, kind of whoever you are, whatever you look like, however much money your family has, if you had STMath, you did better than kids who looked like you. So next slide. We saw those same results in the 2023 STAR or 2023 school year, and we saw them again across multiple years. So the numbers go up a little bit. We're above 75% meets masters there. What we thought would be really interesting was if we looked at multiple years, how does that look? So if you could show on the next slide, what you'll see is that students use STMath across multiple years. Actually, we were able to shrink that approaches and did not meet group down to a very small amount. We were able to move those 3rd, 4th, 5th grade students across those 3 years well into the 80s in meets masters on that 2023 STAR last year. Next slide, please. And finally, if you're thinking about, is it time to bring in STMath now? I don't know if it's going to make an impact. What we found in that statewide analysis was that even as little as a month of using STMath actually leads to a measurable growth in meets masters on STEM. So next slide, please. We care about helping your students do better on STAR, and so do you. But do your students really care about that? And I want to bring in my colleague, Chelsea, to speak to that next, who is a former upper elementary math educator for the better part of the last decade in Texas schools across the state. So Chelsea, take it away.
Yeah, and I'm actually not going to answer that question because you guys already know the answer to that question. And so while STAR is important and it's what we're measured by, we're really invested in creating joy around math. We want students to be engaged in the math that they're doing and to experience the productive struggle in a joyful way. If you'll go to the next slide, please. I'm just going to highlight a few of the things you'll see on these next couple of slides. And there's a QR code on there. If you want to scan that at any point in these next couple of slides, you'll be able to see a live GG visit. Just make sure you have your volume turned down because there is some loud, joyful screaming. If you'll go to the next slide, please. I love that quote in the bottom corner. And because math is being presented visually in ST Math, it's non-threatening for students who may otherwise be intimidated by math. She also mentions that it plays like a video game, but without the gimmicky distractions. So from personal experience as a teacher, I felt so confident putting my students on ST Math because I knew they would be doing math the entire time. There's no shooting aliens, dressing your avatar, wandering around worlds. If they're on ST Math, they're doing math the whole time, but it still feels like a video game for them. If you go to the next slide, please. And we didn't just pick like the only 10 pictures we have of students happily playing ST Math. I run our Texas Twitter account, and it is flooded with pictures like these every single day, quotes from educators just saying how much their students love it and how much they love it and how much growth it's helping their students make. If you go to the next slide, please. And there's even been third-party research done showing that ST Math positively impacts how students feel about math. The study was done by the National Science Foundation on thousands of students, but it also included students from Texas in Clean ISD. So these are some of the outcome statements from that study. Helping students see themselves as mathematicians is a big part of what we do. If you'll go to the next slide, please. So we've kind of talked about the STAR results we've seen across Texas and how engaging it is for students. We wanted to cover a few other details and things to expect as far as implementation goes and the support that you'll receive from us. If you'll head to the next slide. These are our usage recommendations and where we've seen the STAR growth that Garrett covered earlier. And just a reminder that every minute spent on ST Math is time spent learning math. If you'll go to the next slide. We cover grades pre-K through 8 and aligned to the TEKS for each of those and the new Texas pre-K guidelines for pre-K. Next slide, please. And you may have only got, a certain number of licenses, and you can use those however you best see fit. So if you're looking to use for just certain grade level bands, just kind of keep that in mind as we go through these next couple slides. Next slide, please. So everything throughout the grade level stays visual, stays focused in that conceptual learning, but starting in second grade and up, we do introduce some STAR style assessment questions. Students will complete a pre and post quiz, and this helps us measure if the conceptual learning students are doing through the puzzles in ST Math is leading to assessment type growth. And as we saw in the STAR results shared earlier, the answer is a resounding yes. If you'll go to the next slide, please. Just a quick note on the middle school platform. So for 6th through 8th graders, they will take a diagnostic that will auto-assign them intervention content to help fill any gaps that they have from elementary school. So they'll have their tier 1 grade level content, and then they'll also have their personalized intervention content. Next slide, please. Obviously, a supplemental program works best when it is aligned to what your teachers are already doing in the classroom. So for Eureka or any other curriculum you are using, we can rearrange the ST Math content to mirror the scope and sequence for that curriculum. We also have training designed specifically for schools that are using Eureka that will help integrate ST Math into that Eureka instructional block. We can align to any core curriculum you're using, whether that's STEM Scope, SCO-Math, TEKS resource system. We have correlations for all of those. Next slide, please.
1 minute warning.
There's also an option to integrate your assessment data with ST Math. So if you're using MAP, Renaissance Star, those can be integrated to auto-assign content to your students. Next slide. And then just to hit on how ST Math is preparing students for those new STAR question types. And Isa, you can just kind of click through these next couple slides. If at any point you want more information on these, you can click that link at the top and it'll take you to a few more examples of ST Math and STAR. So if your teachers are looking for a way to cover that, it's in there. When we've been meeting with district leaders recently, we're asking them why they're keeping ST Math, and it boils down to they've surveyed their teachers and their teachers tell them how much they love it, and so do their students. So just hitting on a couple of the things in these slides, it helps with problem solving, not just memorizing steps, that it is engaging and challenging. Next slide, please. And how beneficial it is for their non-English speaking students because it's visual. Next slide, and that it is a win-win for teachers and students. The next slide has when our office hours will be. We've got them on Monday and Wednesday. If either of those times don't work for you, you're welcome to set up some one-on-one time to meet with us individually. You can send an email to texas@stmath and we'll set up a time with you. And then just a reminder, if you were only allocated a certain number of licenses, we will work with you to figure out the best way to allocate those. You don't have to enroll all the students at your building, but if you would like to do that but don't have enough licenses to cover everyone, we will work with you on that as well. Thank y'all.
Thanks so much, Chelsea. All right, Chanda, you're up for Zern.
Hey, thank you. Good morning. So my name is Chanda and I'm a partner success director at Zern. And I support schools and districts that are implementing Zern, and I lead our partner success managers in Texas. Next slide. Thank you. So I'll start with a little background on Zern. We're a nonprofit, and everything we do is driven by the belief that all kids are math kids. Zern Math is currently used by 1 in 4 elementary students and more than 1 million middle school students across the country. And Zern's instructional resources are designed to be used flexibly to support everything from core curriculum, tier 1 support, acceleration, intervention, and of course, tutoring. So at Zern, everything we do has one goal: to drive student achievement in K-8 math, including for historically underserved students. We've been solely focused on driving student achievement in K-8 math since we began in 2012. Our work is focused on supporting teachers and students with our research-backed instructional materials to ensure that all kids can catch up and move forward with grade level math. We actually offer 2 types of instructional resources. If you can go back just for a second, Isa, sorry. We offer 2 types of instructional resources: adaptive digital math lessons that students work on independently, as well as additional teaching materials for teachers to use as needed. Thank you. You can go now. Thank you. So Zern Math gives students more opportunities for grade level concept exploration while also providing built-in differentiated support right when students are going to need it. So we know how difficult it is to do that for each student when you're teaching a whole class. So we're here to support with that. Next, click. So we're going to dive into our digital lesson. So the goal of each Zern digital lesson is to support students to move forward with their grade level math while also catching up on unfinished learning, and to do it in a way so that kids enjoy math. Our digital lessons are designed around 2 key ideas. First, digital lessons deepen the learning that happens during core instruction. So Zern's digital lessons offer students another opportunity to do grade level math with on-screen instruction from real teachers, visual models, and then concrete and pictorial representations, as well as those interactive digital manipulatives. So basically, our lessons are like a double dose of the daily grade level math lesson. Next, click. We also know that all kids don't master every concept from prior grades, so our materials don't assume they do. Digital lessons are designed to provide multiple layers of differentiated support right when a student struggles. So for example, when a student struggles, digital lessons launch scaffolded support that brings connected foundational concepts right into the context of their grade level learning. So for example, rather than putting a 5th grade student back into grade 4, we bring that grade 4 support right into their 5th grade lesson. So this way, students are going to spend more time on grade level while still getting that support that they need to catch up. Of course, for deeper intervention, teachers can bookmark connected foundational lessons that provide that additional support while still keeping students connected to that core grade level instruction. Okay, thank you. So here are the components of our Zern digital lesson. So each digital lesson has a balance of fluency, guided practice, and then independent practice. Students begin each lesson with a fluency warm-up as a fun activity that builds automaticity and also provides an on-ramp to the new learning. Then students are going to move on to the guided practice, and this is where they learn and connect new concept. So it's basically a digital version of the daily concept development from your classroom. Then finally, students complete an independent practice activity or a digital exit ticket where they must show understanding before they can unlock the next lesson. All of these components of our digital lessons from start to finish take on average about 30 minutes for students to complete. Next slide. I also wanted to share how the information on student progress and struggle is summarized for teachers and for administrators. There are several levels of reports available in Zern, including classroom level reports that teachers use to support implementation. There are also in-depth student level reports that can be used for acceleration planning or communicating progress with families. And then we also provide summarized information for administrators. And I'll be happy during office hours next week if it's helpful to dive into these more in detail. What I'd like to do now is share a Zern study from Texas, and this is using data from the 2022-2023 school year. And what you see here is an overview of the study. So in the state of Texas that year, there were almost 15,000 students that completed 3 or more digital lessons per week. We sampled about 4,400 of those students for this quasi-experimental study. For this study, there was a treatment group and a control group. The treatment group consisted of 4th through 6th grade students who had completed 3 or more Zern lessons a week. And then the control group was a group of matched students, grades 4 through 6, that had not used Zern in that same school year. Okay. And so before I dive into the findings of the study, I wanted to take just a tiny step back and look at how Zern was being used across the state of Texas that year. As I mentioned, Zern is a flexible platform. It's been used across Texas programs. So it's been used for tutoring, for summer programs, for after school, for blended learning. It was used by over 484,000 Texas students across grades K through 8. In over 300 districts. And that was more than 3 times the number of students that were using Zern the year before. So just to kind of set the context of what was happening in Texas that year. So on the next slide, you'll see our key findings from this study. These are the 5 kind of big headlines of what we learned, and I'm going to look at these in a little more detail in just a second. First, Zern usage significantly increased STAR and math scale scores by 53 points on average. Across subgroups, we saw that Zern usage resulted in significant increases in STAR math scale scores. We also saw that Zern usage improved STAR performance level. The big headline there was that 62% of our lowest scoring students moved up at least 1 performance level. Some moved up more than 1. Zern usage added 10.4 points on average to the percentage of students scoring at grade level mastery or above on the STAR assessment. I'm very excited to say that any dosage between 1 to 3 or more lessons a week led to student growth. We saw the strongest gains at 3 or more lessons a week, but let's look at a few charts to kind of bring life to these. So here what you see is that for Texas students who consistently use Zern, on average, they scored 53 points higher than their matched peers who did not use Zern. In the orange, you'll see our students who are completing 3 or more Zern digital lessons a week. In purple, what you see is students who are not using Zern. Here you can also see across subgroups that students who are using Zern, doing at least 3 or more lessons a week, scored higher than their matched peers, and you can see the difference here by subgroup. On the next slide, what you see is that 62% of students grew at least 1 level compared to their matched peers who did not use Zern. So again, in orange, you'll see students who are completing 3 or more Zern digital lessons a week. The purple are students who were not. And so on the right, you'll see 62% of students who did those 3 or more lessons a week moved out of that lowest performance level. Some moved 1 level, some moved more than 1 level. And then on the left, you see only 46% of students who weren't moved up at least 1 level. On the next slide, you'll see that students who consistently use Zern outpace their matched peers by 10 percentage points on meets grade level or above. And then as you see, when you look across our student subgroups, we had double-digit gains for our students completing 3 or more digital lessons compared to their matched peers who did not. Okay, and then our last result that I wanted to share with you. Here we're really talking about how many lessons students were completing and the growth that was matched to. So we saw that students who completed 3 or more digital lessons a week improved by 53 points. When I look at 1 or 2 lessons, we still saw improvements. Students improved by about 10 points, 2 to 3 lessons about 25 points, but we saw that biggest improvement when they did 3 or more grade level lessons a week. Okay, so then next steps, and we're right at time. So we're offering personalized deployments kickoff. So our support team is going to work through all of your technical setup, including getting your Clever ClassLink set up. Of course, we'll make sure that everybody gets the training they need, both admins and teachers. My team, the partnership team, is excited to support through check-ins to review data, address roadblocks, share best practices, all to help you reach that goal of at least 2 grade level lessons a week. And we're offering office hours next Wednesday, which will be February 28th from 11 to 12 Central Time. And the registration link is clickable. I know you don't have access to that, so we'll drop that link in the chat. And if you have any questions, of course, reach out to me. My email address is there on your screen, chanda@zern.org. And we're excited to connect with you next week if you're able to join. Thank you.
So much. Thank you to all the providers, all 6 of you, and your teammates who came. We really appreciate you sharing information about what folks can expect if they choose you as their provider. And Krista, I'll turn it over to you to close us out with our next steps.
Thank you, Isa. I want to be respectful of everyone's time, so I'm going to go pretty quickly, but just a reminder that all of the provider office hours links have been posted within the chat. TEA will also be hosting office hours. We can post that link in the chat here in just a second as well. These will be on February 29th, and please feel free to come if you have any questions specifically around the survey. Also, feel free to email us at Accelerated Instruction, and we will be more than happy to help you. Again, these are just your next steps. The biggest piece is to make sure that that survey gets completed by March 29th. You do have a window of time to do that, but just maybe, make sure we don't wait until the last minute, because inevitably technology issues will happen. And then, we may not get that survey completed by the deadline. So we are allocating providers on a first come, first served basis. So the sooner that you complete that survey, the sooner that you will be matched with your provider. Again, here are our contact information. We will put the links to the LASSO 2.0 webpage in the chat, and the email address has already been put in there. Just a reminder that this deck and recording, as well as the 20th kickoff meeting, will be posted on that LASSO 2.0 webpage. That's going to be your one-stop shot, source of truth to get everything that you need. There will even be a calendar to remind you of important dates and things of that nature. So super important website there. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen.
Thank you. Thank you, Isa and Krista. And Alicia, we didn't get to introduce her in person earlier. We mentioned her. She was able to join. Thank you. I think we answered most of the open questions in the chat or in the Q&A. Many of them were vendor specific. So I'd encourage you to go ahead and reach out, either sign up and attend an office hour for the particular provider. I say vendor, we mean provider. And we also have the state approved provider list or document that was linked earlier in the chat for you to check, and it has more detailed information that's available to you as well. But go ahead and email that specific provider with your question. They're going to be the best source of information about the specific question you may have. We also noticed a lot of questions about House Bill 1416 use of a particular product. You can go to our Accelerated Instruction webpage, which provides a lot of statutory information on how to use particular products that you may choose to use and comply with statutory compliance. But also, if you're using this in a blended learning environment, there may be specific requirements that you must meet as part of the blended learning grant program or other programs that you're using a product you may choose to use for. So just be sure you're looking at those requirements and usage, as well as meeting MSC grant requirements for usage, access and usage that are part of the grant assurances there as well. Most everybody should have surveys. We've had some emails about survey links not working. We're processing those, and we're trying to follow up on those as quickly as possible. And we are trying to get those out again as quickly as possible so that you can get that survey completed as soon as you've decided who your providers are going to be for the MSC grant. And acceptance or decline of the grant is important that we complete those surveys as soon as you've decided that. Is there anything else, Isa or Krista?
No, I'll go ahead and end the meeting. Thank you all so much for being here, and thank you to our providers. We appreciate you all.
We also want to thank Jeff Heffler in the background for helping us out today. He's been a great support. So Jeff, I know you haven't been on camera, but we appreciate you supporting us today in our webinar. Thank you. And all the providers that came out, we know a lot of time and effort. We appreciate y'all being here as well. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.